Hello and welcome to Mental Health Matters. I'm Dr. Audrey Tang, a chartered psychologist, and we take a deep dive into all things mental health and well-being. I am flying solo today, but I have the most amazing guests lined up. We always have fabulous, fabulous guest experts who share their experiences, share their stories, and give you tips and tools. And today's is particularly notable. It's Shig Hayre, and the important thing here is he's going to share his own story of battling alcohol addiction, as well as explain his practice, which is really different. It really includes the family. It includes the social context in which we live, and that's particularly key when it comes to dealing with drugs and alcohol. Shig, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
No, thank you so much for having me.
Now,
I appreciate it, Audrey.
Oh, I'm so glad that you could zoom in with us, because I think your work is so important. We are seeing more and more problems with drugs and alcohol because we have more and more pressures in life, and we turn to those things. We also turn to those things a lot earlier, which can make addictions a lot harder to deal with. But I know you come as well from a place of therapy, but a place of knowledge. So I was going to ask, if you don't mind, could you share your own personal story first with us, please?
Yeah, I mean, my personal story could take days to tell you, but I can put it in a nutshell.
Yeah.
And I can tell you the collateral damage that happened to me. And the collateral damage is that I've not seen my oldest daughter for 30 years. I was a millionaire at 30 and I bankrupt at 46. I had a company in California and a few companies here in my hometown of Leicestershire. I ended up losing all the businesses, went bankrupt, and also my marriage and everything went down the pan, and my mental health. So that was a consequence of my drinking. My story is no different to anybody else's. You know, I had some sort of trauma in my childhood days. You know, I was come from sort of domestic abuse, home, and bullying at school, etc. I really think that affected my my drinking or my life. But now looking back at it, I was always full of fear for some reason. But I managed to come through and got myself signed my first company at 18 years old, and picked up a drink at 13 years old, again, not realising if it was anything special, nothing different to anybody else. But then when I look at the collateral damage that's done in the past, it was always there, it was getting worse. And I was drinking more and more to cope with my life and my feelings and everyday life, really. It just progressed and progressed, and I didn't realise that I was doing this.
And this gives you that unique insight when it comes to your clients as well, because this is what you commonly hear. You hear people say, well, it just started as just one drink. It doesn't hurt. It's social. Everyone's doing it. My parents are either doing it or they don't care, so it doesn't matter. So how does that almost get out of hand? We think we're in control, but then suddenly it reverses and the alcohol takes control of us.
It does. It creeps upon you. You know, a question I always ask anybody if they've got a problem is it costing you more than money? Now, if drinking drugs are costing you more than money, you have a problem.
Yeah.
And that's a very simple answer, really.
Yeah.
You know, is it costing you more than money? Well, it cost me more than money. I lost my driving license a few times. My oldest daughter, my bankruptcy, you know, you can see it happening. And it's a denial of this illness because you don't realise that that you've got it. And then it's a medicine of choice that you're using to close that head off of yours, to cope. And I'm afraid that when it gets you, it gets you.
Yes,
You're not a choice.
Because listening to you, it is that whole thing about you've seen the red flags. You lost your driving license, but almost that wasn't enough. You lost seeing your daughter. You lost your company. It almost, when is rock bottom? When do we stop? I mean, how much of a hold does that take on you? So you can't see those very clear red flags.
Well, I personally don't like the word rock bottom.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
You know, no. Listen, it's a word that's used everywhere, and I don't know. I don't like it, and I don't get it, because and I mean that now, because I had that word said to me so many times before. When are you going to stop drinking? When you obviously haven't hit your rock bottom. This is the only illness that I know that family members, colleagues, and loved ones want you to suffer more before they'll actually step in and help you.
You're right. That's
You know,
huge. Sorry, I need to just hold that for a second, because you're absolutely right. Because that was exactly, and it was just in a turn of phrase that I used of, well, when is rock bottom? I'm almost waiting for that one turning point. But you're absolutely right. It shouldn't be like that at all.
thing is, Audrey, if it was any other illness, and this is an illness recognised by the WHO,
Yes.
it's not made up. These illnesses, if it was any other illness, cancer, eyesight, disability, and any other shape or form, nobody will say, well, hold on a minute, let's get you in a wheelchair before we start helping you to walk again. Let's wait till you're nearly blind, and then we'll get the people to come and have a look at your eyesight, But this illness is totally different. This illness is one of them illnesses that they obviously are not ready yet. I mean, as a drinker and as somebody who's dependent and addicted to alcohol and drugs, that word doesn't exist. Are you ready yet? Or when will you be ready yet? Yeah. It's got to a point where you're using that medicine to live. That medicine now is your coping mechanism to shut that head off. And that's what it's all about. It's about burying your feelings, burying all the fear that you're suffering with and trauma in the past. And you found this stuff that seems to shut everything off.
Yes. And we are going to talk about your particular method of supporting somebody and their families when it comes to dealing with drugs and alcohol addiction. But just before that, I want to ask you about one more misunderstanding that we tend to have. And that is about the shutting that voice or whatever it is you're shutting out in your head. People will say, because they don't understand, but you've got everything going for you. You've got your companies. You've got all of these amazing things going on. How is it that you have to turn to all of this? What is that issue?
I wish I could have the answer to that one, but I think it all stems. I mean, I've been in this in recovery now for 18 years, and I've helped thousands of people. And in the business that I'm in, we've helped hundreds. And one of the underlying issues involved with all of us is this feeling of not fitting in at a very early age. This feeling of unknown fear, and this. And any of life's problems that have been happening around us, i.e. my own story with domestic abuse and traumas and things like that have happened in my life, we tend to bury them and not talk about them and not deal with them. And they are going to get you at some point. So at some point, you're waiting to take something to change the way you feel.
Yes. And it's about a lot of inner traumas, which our resident guest, we are going to come back to, Shig, in a moment, but our resident psychologist, Dr. Meg Arroll, has written a book called Tiny Traumas, and she talks about those little things which seem little or have become little because we've grown up and as adults we don't think about them anymore, but they do shape your life. So she's going to talk to us. She's going to join us in a second, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about some of those problems that we face when we are looking to make those changes, those big changes.
We all go through so many ups and downs in life, and some of these things can be very difficult and they can happen over a long period of time. Now, we talk about trauma extensively, both in mental health and just in normal everyday language nowadays. And we tend to focus on the big T traumas. So these are the very obvious types of trauma that we do understand quite a bit about. So could be early childhood abuse, could be living through a natural disaster or being the subject of a violent type of attack. And research and practice shows us that, yes, these sorts of events are devastating, and people can develop some very difficult coping mechanisms in light of these, such as alcohol, addiction, and other substance misuse problems. But there are other types of trauma. They are called little t or tiny t trauma, And these types of low grade, yet cumulative, and that's what's really important, the nature that these build up over time, these low grade cumulative types of trauma, they also can contribute to some difficult types of coping mechanisms, such as turning to alcohol or other substances, or even to food and things like that, in order to essentially cope and self-soothe. So I was very, very interested in this topic because it was something that I saw in my clients on a daily basis. And I do have my book, which is called Tiny Traumas. That's the American version. And that is the British version there. And it really outlines how, say, growing up in a household that wasn't perhaps abusive, but where love was conditional. So maybe we needed to behave in a certain way or be a certain way, and we couldn't really be ourselves. When we grow up or through adolescence, that can lead us to feel very uncertain in life. It can make us feel very confused about who we are and really not authentic and true to ourselves. And that in itself, then layered with other difficulties, can lead us to turn to some self-soothing mechanisms that are not so helpful to us, that don't serve us very well at all. So in my work, I use a AAA process, and the first A stands for awareness. So this is all about being aware of our own constellation of traumas, whether they're big T or tiny t or major life events, and also that these smaller cumulative type events, they really can have a big impact. So it's not so much the size of the event, it's the impact it has on you. And knowing, having awareness around your own constellation is the first step in really overcoming some of these maladaptive coping mechanisms. Now, the second A is acceptance. And this is something that I know I found difficult. We all find very difficult. And my clients, they tend to sort of jump over because it can be so challenging. So acceptance is about recognizing what's happened in the past and that we cannot change the past, but we can actually take action for the future. And a point about acceptance, it's not being stuck, it's not being resigned to the way things are, because we can make changes. It's actually quite empowering to accept where we are and to be able to move on. But moving on is absolutely key too. So the third stage is action, because awareness and acceptance on their own, they're not enough without action to go forward. So some of these actions could be developing more adaptive, healthier coping mechanisms, such as social support, such as engaging in the arts and other creative types of pursuits, and perhaps even watching some comedy and being able to find those pockets of joy in each and every day. So this dynamic 3-step process is one that I use, but there are many other interventions, many other techniques that can help us move from something that is maladaptive in terms of the way we cope to something that serves us in such a more supportive and really better way.
So Shig, you offer SP Bespoke Wellbeing Solutions, and this is a private detox at home solution for drug and alcohol addiction. Now, there's a couple of things, because first of all, it's at home, and that's really different to a lot of the retreats that you see. Why is that actually so important?
Well, I had a treatment done to me over in California many, many years ago, 18 years ago, and it was based on a holistic approach for me personally. And I've never picked up a drink since that day. Now, when I help people, and I've helped a lot of people voluntarily many years ago, one thing I kept picking up was they were going into rehabilitation centres and coming back out and drinking. The other thing I picked up was a family. this rips families apart. It destroys families. It's breaking up families daily, and it's, so what I wanted to do is, what is it that's not working out there? And I looked at this closely, and one of the things is a lot of your triggers are in your own four walls where you live.
Yes.
You're living your life. Number two, your family members. They're ill as well. Not their fault, but they become codependent now. They become enabling you to drink. There be emotional blackmail involved. And so there's a hell of a lot of stuff going on in there. So we wanted to look at this and sort of say, look, what kind of package can we do to make it personal? We have to tailor it to that person. Now, in these programs, you got 12-step program, you got a SMART program, you got all these other programs, and you've got to individualize it to that particular individual and their family. So that was the number one thing. Number two we looked at was, again, this is few experience with people that we've helped, and also my ex-business partner was a lawyer, and 30 years as solicitor, 3 rehabs later, was carried on drinking. So I got him well on. The one thing we looked at was, again, a lot of this is based on my own story as well. We looked at people who are going into rehabilitation centres and they've been disciplined at work, or they've been for divorce or separation or child access. When they come out of rehabilitation centre, that's still waiting for them. No one's dealing with that. So we've got lawyers that we can get involved in our process and work with that while they're at home. Secondly, a lot of our clients happen to be business-minded or self-employed business people. So we've got a business background, so we help troubleshoot the businesses. Again, people are going into rehabilitation centres. Half their head is, how's my business going? Will I survive this? And we do that. So we really have got this package. And thirdly, we do this very quickly. We do it within 7 to 21 days. And that is real hands-on and intensive work, and it works.
Yes.
So the answer to the question is, it's very easy to stop drinking if you're going into a bubble somewhere and you're not, it's not around you. Yeah. This has got to be done in your own home, where it is hard and it's not easy, but you're working with a whole family, not 30, 40 other people.
Yes, because the family is part of that. And you mentioned things like emotional blackmail. It will almost be things like, oh, you're changing, but you make it about yourself. So, oh, why don't you just have a drink? It won't hurt. And that's often because we don't want to look at our own issues going on. And that's something that you need to tackle. But something you said there was so important. And it was about the support for the business, support for the practical other things going on in that person's orbit, which you can't just go off for 4 weeks in the Priory or somewhere like that and then suddenly expect all of the other stuff to disappear. You're right, it stays there, or it gets worse, or there's more problems. And so to work with a lawyer as well that's a really unique perspective that you can bring.
Well, it's a perspective that some people don't need lawyers, some people don't need the business consultants, but the fact that we've got them, so we're offering the whole package. We're not letting anything go to one side. I mean, we've got experts in sexual abuse, domestic abuse, child abuse, ADHD, autism, you name it, we've got them, because we need to get down to the nitty gritty of what's been going on in that person's life.
Yes.
So when we're helping a client, we dig down deep. We want to know from the childhood what's been going on, how the marriage is, how everything is going with them. It's just, it's fantastic. It really is. And working with the family and being able to give them that empathy and, cry with them sometimes and use our emotional side with them. And it really, really does work. And we're trying to keep families together and not break them apart.
Which is
very, very important for us.
It is. And I think that's really important to mention, because I think so many people avoid seeking help because they think, oh, the whole dynamic's going to change. Well, the dynamic has to change, but that doesn't mean the structure has to change. It's about learning to work and process in the way that's helpful and healthy for everybody. Do you mind taking us through one of your success stories? I read a beautiful one about a family that you supported. It was a young lady who had a diagnosis of ADHD. I think she had a diagnosis of autism as well. Family just could not seem to support her, and yet you were able to find that way in. I mean, this must be the same as so many stories.
Well, there are so many subs, and we're very, very particular what we get at. But you see, the thing about the service is so confidential and so discreet, and that's why we get called in. But this particular story, Jessica, I believe,
she was shared in the paper. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. She did a magazine thing for us, and well, it was her mother actually that approached the magazine. We didn't. They asked us if it's okay to do it. So, but the story of this young lady was, I think she was only around 23, 24 years old, an absolutely lovely lady, and she didn't quite fit in at school and things like that. And they started diagnosing her with autism and ADHD, and psychiatrists were seeing her, and no one was really helping. No one was really wrapping their arms around her and understanding her. And it was frustrating. So she was in and out of school, and then putting them in special schools. And to cut a long story short, in the end, she was taking alcohol, drugs, and anything she could take because she just weren't coping in life properly and couldn't cope in life. And there's no wraparound service there to help people like that. So she tried. They tried getting a counsellor who could help them cope with this alcohol and drugs, and it didn't work because again, every time you have a one-off session with somebody, they get a bit better and a bit better, but they can't stop, and they don't think they can stop. So what we did was it was a counsellor that we're connected with that actually approached us and says, look, just maybe you can help this girl because she needs a real wraparound service. So we went down there, we spoke to the parents, and and bless them parents, they had to borrow £15,000 on credit cards to pay us. They didn't have the money, but they found that money. And the sad story of that is that they were actually buying the drugs and alcohol for the daughter and doing drug deals as well, bringing them home.
Wow.
So because they had to keep the daughter safe because she was on the safeguarding. So every time she went out, she was vulnerable. And so the first thing we did was said, look, okay, this is going to be a complicated job, but there's nothing we can't do because of our team that we have. So we got team members involved in the autism, experts in autism, experts in ADHD. And we turned this one around different to what we normally detox first, but this one we thought we've got to get an understanding of the person because the most important thing was to understand her and get somebody to understand her before you can start telling her to do this and do that. Yeah. And it worked perfectly for this girl. She finally had somebody who understood her and listened to her properly. And then we got obviously the drug addiction people in to help her with her drugs, and she put that down. And today I can tell you right now, today she's doing a BACP course. She's over a year sober, and I want her on our team.
Oh, and that's just so wonderful. That's such a wonderful, wonderful success. And just on that, yes, and you say it's not cheap when it comes to going in for treatment. That there's some good practices out there which may not work for you. There are practices which are very costly, and there are scams out there as well. How do we tell? How do we know?
You got to be transparent.
That's it.
This is the whole key to this. You've got to be transparent. And family members, bless them, they're panicking. Would you believe a lot of our clients come to us after they've already been to a rehab, and it's sad that they come to us and we put this right. We've never charged a client twice.
Yeah.
We're on year number 6 now. Never charged a client twice. We're not a revolving door.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
We're a very personalised company, and when we go into people's homes, we make these promises, and we wrap our arms around them. We're never going to go back there again and charge them again.
Yeah.
They get free aftercare from us all the time. Going forward, the whole family get free aftercare from us.
That's amazing.
So this is,
that was what I was going to ask about, actually. It's about the aftercare and the prevention of relapse, because we all know that it is a bit of a roller coaster ride. And we talk so much about giving our cars an MOT and just checking up on all of those things, which we do. We check in. What's your aftercare process like, and how do you help people when they're having those wobbly moments?
When we leave our clients, we never leave our clients. That's number one. Number two is that we will keep in touch with them. We will keep in touch with them immediately to make sure they're doing okay. Number 3, a lot of our clients are passed over to a counsellor who's actually referred them over to us, which we pay that counsellor for 2-3 months work after we're finished anyway. So they've got that continuation. And number 4, the family members and the client can call us and Zoom us and talk to us anytime they want. And that works because they can see something we can't.
Yes, absolutely. And with all of these things in mind, and it's wonderful to have that access to such professional support. What were some of the things that really contributed in helping you come through, not just the professional support, but perhaps maybe changes that you had to make in your own internal environment?
Well, number 1, I was useless because I never recognised this problem, and I was arrogant and I was egotistic, and I had the money. So, it was sort of like, I'm okay, Jack, the way I am. So I took everybody hostages with me, and I eventually tried to commit suicide. So that was my downfall to come into recovery, and my family helped me. The changes I had to make were immense changes. Changing in my... I actually believe, to be honest with you, the old Shig died back in 2006 as a new person born, because I'm no longer egotistic. I'm a lot more humble. I care about people. My whole outlook has changed completely. I don't break the law. I don't lie. I don't cheat. So all these are traits that happen with us, I'm afraid, as we get ill, because we're hiding the drink, we're lying to people, we're cheating on people, we're Jekyll and Hyde people. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So there's a lot of changes you have to make in your own life, but changes for the good, not the bad.
Yes, yes. And there's one thing that you just said at the start of that answer, which really resonated with me. It's when you're ill, you hold people hostage. That's a huge thing. Totally. Do you mind just unpacking that a little bit so people can maybe recognise, oh, hang on a minute, I think I do that?
Well, I could tell you now that I was married to a lovely, lovely lady for coming on 20 years. I had 2 children with her, and I used to tell her on a daily basis that I'm the best thing that's ever happened to you. You drive a 4-wheel drive car, you have your best holidays in the world, you live in a beautiful home. Look at me. Well, everybody's envious of you. The fact of the matter is, I took a hostage. I was narcissistic. I was controlling. I treated her with total disrespect, really. And she put up with it. And she put up with me for a long, long time. And, she's remarried now. And, she's got a lovely husband, and I'm over the moon because I didn't want to destroy her life as well as mine. And I didn't see I was doing this. I actually thought I was a decent person, but I wasn't.
Wow,
I wasn't there. I wasn't present, if you like. Children have, Christmas parties. They have these little things at school, and I was never interested in any of that. It was just money. I bought everybody with money, and but the drink was always my number 1 driver.
Wow. That's so honest and so raw. And that's part of the healing process, isn't it? It's about recognizing all of those things. And we have to dig very, very deep when it comes to making those changes. So where would somebody have to start? I know it might just be simply reaching out to yourself, and we can get your links in our show notes. So we will have those there. But where does someone start?
Look, we get a lot of calls from families and family members, who have been to a counsellor, and their son or their husband or the wife or whatever is having a problem. And what they would turn around and say is they're not ready yet. And if I had £1 for everybody who tells me they're not ready yet, I'd be a multi-billionaire. You're never ready. This is one of these illnesses. It's an illness of denial. And even if you are ready and you do want to seek help, that fear is holding you back. Yes. It's really, really fearful. You're going to take that medicine off me. That medicine that seems to let me cope with life. What I'm going to be like. What kind of personality am I going to be like? What kind of person am I going to be? It's a horrible, horrible thing. So we always say intervention. Intervention is a key here. Yeah. I don't believe in rock bombs. I don't believe in people going right down that scale. Why do you have to lose your driving license? Why do you have to lose your job? Why do you have to lose your loved ones? Why? You don't have to. You know, if you can get people who can come in and talk to you and explain this illness to you and explain the process to you, it works. And we have been to a lot of families' homes where they're paid us to come down and do an assessment, knowing full well that they're not even interested, they don't want to know. And we've turned them around. We've turned that person around because we know what they're going through. We know what they're thinking. We know that fear. We know that anxiety. We know what it's like thinking that, good God, how I'm going to cope without this medicine of choice.
It's been so enlightening talking to you, Shig. Thank you so much.
Basically, what I'm trying to say is let's try and stop people going down that scale. Let's try and stop people suffering with collateral damage.
Yeah.
Let's try and stop that. It doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah. It's about saying it's never going to be the right time, or now is the right time to do it.
Now is the right time before this happens. And when they listen to someone's story like myself or my colleagues and see the honesty involved, they can readily see that, good God, you know, these things are coming. Yeah. They're coming.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It would be lovely to have you on the show again, and we can chat more about unpacking a lot of what you've said. So thank you so much for joining us today, Shig. It's just been great to talk to you.
It's a pleasure.
Hey there, I'm Diane Forster, host of I Have Today, where we talk about the art of intentional living. Our show is on the Fresh Takes channel on Mondays at 11 a.m. Pacific. So if you're ready to be inspired, empowered, and educated and learn how to live the I Have Today way, then tune in. Hope to see you there.
And now it's a very special guest. It is author Scott White. Now, he is the author of The Life's Too Short Guy. And this was a winner of the Firebird Book Awards from Speak Up Talk Radio in Ohio. We have a link with them, and we interview the winners of the wellbeing category because we sponsor that particular competition entry. And he's here to talk to us about how he made changes from living a very corporate life and thinking, I must get everything done, to being life's too short to be unhappy.
So the book is called The Life is Too Short Guy, Strategies to Make Every Day the Best Day Ever. And I set out to write it, say about 2 years ago. So early in 2021, so for years I've been saying that I wanted to write a book and I wasn't sure about what. And early in 2021, I met a new coach. I was working with an executive coach, and in our first session, he interviews me. I fill out some personality questionnaires, assessments. Second session, he says, dude, you're Mr. Life is Too Short Guy. Everything's rah-rah, get it done, positivity. And I'm like, yeah, I guess that's right, but I never really thought of it that way. Then I told my wife that night, this is early 2021, and she said to me, maybe that's the book you always wanted to write. And of course, I reacted like, I don't know what that book would be about. And I kind of ignored it. And then I jotted a few notes down, and then I stopped. And then early in 2022, so about a year and a half ago, I guess now 2 years ago, it's amazing how time flies. Early in 2022, I went all in. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to give this my best shot. I wasn't sure where I was going. I wasn't sure where to start. I just jumped in and wrote all last year, and it's been a fun, amazing journey. It started as a hobby, then it became a passion project, and today I would say it's an obsession. So it's so simple, and that's the point of the book. So I went out of my way to make this a practical, approachable, easy to read, easy to implement book. I want your listeners to literally say, really? Really? That's it? That's by design, because I want people to realize how simple it is. Smile more. It's beautiful to see you smiling right now. Spend more time smiling. Think about your first thought when you wake up in the morning. What's your very first thought as you open your eyes? Set the tone right for the day. Think about random acts of kindness. When was the last time you performed or received a random act of kindness? Think about, we talked about it a moment ago, passion. What's your passion? Chase your passion. Think about how you're using your minutes. Are you using them to live your best life? There, I just gave you 5 like that. And everything you just heard should have been like, yeah, of course. But the point is that we don't spend enough time thinking about the simplest things. We worry about the wrong things. We have an exercise plan. We have a nutrition plan. Well, how many people have a happiness plan? And this is what I want people to start thinking about. So the tagline is making every day the best day ever. However, I'm also realistic, and every day can't be the best day ever. What I want people to do is think about where they are and how they move one step closer to greater happiness, greater fulfillment. I realize, look, we all deal with setbacks. We deal with death. We deal with disability. We deal with illness. We deal with job loss. We deal with divorce. We can go through the litany of things we deal with. Yet if you use those simple tools, even in your worst moment. So in the book, I tell a story about being at my own father's funeral. My father passed away 17 years ago, and overlooking the casket with him in it, probably the worst moment of my life, I cracked a joke and I made everyone in the room laugh. I found a way. Now, did that make it the best day ever? No. I mean, that would be insane for me to say, well, look, I was burying my father. It was the best day ever. It was the worst day ever. But I found a way to use a small tool, humor. Humor is a powerful tool to bring myself and the rest of the room to a slightly better place. So in the book, I talk about 4 key turning points or inflection points. I talk them aha moments. And for me, the 4 aha moments of my life, when I was about 10 years old, my father actually had a heart attack. He survived. But when you think about who you are at 10 years old in the formative years and what's going on in your life, and to see your father have a heart attack, and then, this was in the 1980s. And while a heart attack today is very serious, in the 1980s, it was a whole different level of seriousness. And he had to fly across the country to have bypass surgery from one of the few surgeons in the country that actually performed surgery at that time. And there's no doubt that began me on this journey, or at least as early as I can remember, the journey toward self-discovery, reflection, and happiness. I already mentioned the passing of my father about 17 years ago. My mother passed away about 7 or 8 years ago, so I've lost both of my parents. And then I'd say the 4th sort of instrumental event in my life was the events of 9/11. I was in downtown New York City. I walked by the World Trade Center about a half hour before the first plane hit it. I was on a call in an office building on the 33rd floor about 6 blocks north of the World Trade Center when I heard the first plane crash. I watched the second plane crash. I watched the towers fall. And then I experienced that for the next week. I lived down in that area, and I would say looking at my father's heart attack, the events of 9/11, and the passing of both my parents were instrumental moments in my life to realizing life's too short. Make the most of every day because tomorrow's not guaranteed. The first one was definitely the passing of my father, and that was a growing up moment. There's no doubt about it. All of a sudden you realize now, and I was in my 30s, so I don't want to say I was a kid, but that is a growing up moment, and a realization that life will never be the same, and a realization that life is short, and a realization that life is fragile. The events of 9/11 in particular, I will tell you that at the time I was an investment banker, living the Wall Street life, and rah, work. I was married, and my lovely wife now of 30 some odd years, we've been together since high school, which is wonderful. She was completely bought in, and she knew I had no interest in a family at that time. I was going to work until I climbed the corporate ladder, and I was going to be the king of Wall Street. And I will tell you that just over a year after 9/11, we had our first daughter, who today is now 21 years old. So it shows you how your perspective changes like that. It's the easiest way to learn more about me, the book, my speaking platform. I'm out speaking to a lot of companies and organizations about these principles, is to go to my website at lifeistooshortguy.com. That's lifeistooshortguy.com.
In Business Boost today, I wanted to talk about why changes don't always stick. Now, this is something a lot of our guest experts will have said time and time again. And the fact is, either we've tried too many changes all at once, so we're completely overwhelmed, or we've done something like go completely cold turkey. I'm not touching any alcohol. I'm not touching any sugar. I'm not touching any this, that, the other. And it becomes very difficult to maintain in everyday life. And simply, thirdly, life gets in the way. We have holidays, we have work, we have disrupted timetables. There's no amount of planning that can sometimes deal with the roller coaster of what life throws at you. So when it comes to change, we do need to make little changes, make little habits, and build those into our lives. Now, a previous guest, Dr. Laura Gurja, talks about this. She talks about this when it comes to resolutions. Now, given that we've gone way past New Year now, If you've already broken your resolutions, don't worry about it, because you can try this particular tip from Dr. Crosier right now. She says what she does is she makes one change at the start of the year. And then when that change actually begins to stick, she adds the second change. And so actually she makes her resolutions at the end of the year. So that's something you could start right now. Make one little change. Build that into your day-to-day. Reflect on it. Is this working? Are there tweaks I have to make? Are there things that have come up that I didn't realize? Live in it for a while. Make those changes. And once that sticks, you can add the next thing. So that's the first tip to give you. The second tip I'd like to give you is something called stacking. Now, this is a little bit like doing a number of things at once, but to stop you from feeling too overwhelmed. This is not to be confused with the thing that a lot of people like to call multitasking, which I would actually say was attention splitting. If you are doing too many cognitive tasks at one time, for example, you are trying to answer an email and then watch television and speak to your loved ones all at the same time, that's not multitasking. They're all things that are playing on your brain. That is attention splitting. So what I suggest there is try one thing at a time. But when I talk about stacking, this is about doing a number of different tasks which can actually change a habit. So just say you want to exercise more, but you also want to spend more time with family. Stack that together so you exercise with family. It seems so simple. And maybe you think I'm actually being really patronizing here, but this is something that I don't always think about. So one of the things that I have is I don't always spend a lot of time with my husband because he works long hours. But if we go to the gym together and we can go into the spa together and that kind of thing, we've got time together as well, but we're also getting to the gym and getting that exercise done. So stacking can make a difference. Make it easy to make those changes. And whilst I'm talking about changes in the personal life, this can also apply to the workplace too. So make it easy to make those changes. If you are trying to introduce a new system, for example, at least get people trained on it and get people trained in batches. So you don't have everyone suddenly dropping tools and doing everything all at once unless your business will allow for that, because otherwise you're putting a lot of pressure on other people. But make it convenient. So where this can work in your personal life is if you want to go jogging, for example, you want to start jogging, have not only at least some shoes that are going to protect you and support you, but have them next to your bed or easy to find if you're getting up early in order to do it, because otherwise that's a barrier right there. Oh, my stuff isn't ready. I'll just leave it till the next day, because no one really wants to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning unless you are particularly driven in that particular way. So these are some of the things that you might want to think about when it comes to making changes. Try not to do everything all at once. Build one thing into your life first, live with it for a while and see what happens. Stack things which are different to each other to see if you can do 2 things or maybe 3 things at once, but they need to be different, and make it as easy as you can for yourself. You know what your barriers are. So therefore, you know what you need to do in order to change that. Well, remaining with the topic of making changes, I had the opportunity to go to the Milton Keynes Ethnic Community Business Networking event in order to learn about the changes that they're making, not just within business, but within their respective communities as well.
This is Yvonne. Yvonne, first of all, is one of the founding members. There's about 7 founding members, and we put the Milton Keynes ethnic business community together so that we could, you could say, equalise the playing field when it comes to networking.
The most important thing that I have seen myself is the fact that we have been able to amplify the voices of a lot of people from ethnic communities as well. We're getting a lot of them actually coming out, winning their awards, actually getting their businesses more recognized, and there's so much more.
We are a Milton Keynes based voluntary organization, and we provide free meals to 50 people every week, and we liaise with councils, and we are the 5-star rating food supply service, which is completely voluntary, and we provide everybody like who's supplying the food with PPE kits and everything, so all the protection and the the kind of availability for food every week. So we have a lot of volunteers, a lot of families who volunteer every week, and they help us to be successful. We help people be happy in their homes and all of the places like that.
This was a lockdown idea. We were regular gym goers. We found there wasn't something that really represented our heritage, so we decided to do something about it. With really, really nice designs. People are using the phrases cloudy and buttery when they wear them. The touch to feel is gorgeous. Unisex t-shirts and ladies' ranges of leggings and top. And the leggings, crucially, have 3 pockets to keep you safe with your keys and your phones. Yeah, this is made from Reprieve, which is what you will see with other very large, famous sports manufacturers, which I shan't mention. The t-shirts are 95% rayon bamboo material made with some spandex. So earth-friendly and recyclable is important to us. And if we do well, we want to continue that in our new products and the good causes we undertake.
Oh, it's so good to see you, and thank you for stopping by. Our range is amazing. We're proudly born and bred in Milton Keynes. I'm a pharmacist by qualification, and skincare wasn't really on the cards for me. But after 4 cycles of IVF, had my twins, one had eczema, mixing in my kitchen with shea butter as a base. Within 3 days, his skin became what it should have been from birth, and that's how, voila, the brand was born. And for me, I'm completely obsessed with people with skin conditions, eczema, psoriasis, dermatitis, people going through chemotherapy, radiotherapy, anything that impacts the skin, and actually battling it with the power of nature. So we've got stuff for children, our new Paw Patrol range, which is incredible. It's amazing for your little superheroes. And of course, we've got the adult range as well. For men, women, it doesn't matter your skin type, skin tone, where you're from, sexual orientation, I don't care. Our products are for everyone. And I really believe that for kids particularly, using natural, authentic products is really, really key. And there are not many of them out there, so we're happy to fill that gap.
For those who don't know anything about MKEBC, we want everybody here. It's not just about ethnic minority people, it's about everybody. It's about the black people, the white people, the Asians. That's why we're inclusive. We're trying to bring everybody in. So that's really key for me, the fact that we're amplifying voices.
And as we come to the end of another show, I wanted to give some tips to think about when it comes to falling off the wagon. It happens. You've heard our guest, you've heard Shig say that there's aftercare that is important. If things go a bit awry, it's okay. Try not to sabotage everything further by then going, oh, well, I couldn't do that, so I'm now going to just sabotage myself and eat the whole cake or whatever it was you were doing. Just be aware of those feelings. Just be aware that feelings of shame and guilt and embarrassment may cause us to behave in strange ways. And also plan for that as well. Really think about that. One thing that people say when it comes to making changes is they say, go and post it online. Tell everybody about it because it makes you accountable. Or do that change with a friend. Now, both of those things may work for you, and if they do, great, do it. No one's saying don't, but I am saying if they don't work for you, and these are the reasons why it can't work, it doesn't always work for everybody. The first is posting something and then making yourself accountable can then lead to all of the question marks when that one time you slip up or you change, or people change. It happens. It's okay. And whilst people are kind of having a go at you, they're not looking at their own issues. So that's one way to deal with the trolls. But also, if you don't want to put it out there, don't. You can keep changes to yourself. You can do things. You can live life for yourself, not for social media. But the second thing is doing something with a friend. It can work for some. For me, it works going to the gym with my husband. But sometimes, and I've heard this from friends, they arrange to go to the gym with someone and then they end up just chatting all the way through, so they don't even work out or do a decent set of exercises when they're there. So if it isn't going to work for you, don't feel you have to do it. When it comes to change, all we can do is manage ourselves as individuals, and that starts by knowing ourselves as individuals. So if you've got any topics you'd like us to cover on the show, Judith will be back with me next week, and we will address any of those mental health and wellbeing issues that you'd like us to take a deep dive into. As always, thanks for tuning in. See you next week.